Hey, folks, back to Keith's vision. Another week behind us and another week ahead of us, and we're still in the Schumer shutdown 2025. This is episode 6, and we are going to get to rocking. I had somebody send me a article out of the New York Post about what's going on in New York. So we're going to do a last, shall we say, last inning stretch of what's going on in New York City. And I will give you information that I've gotten from the research, and I will give you my opinion. As always, this is my vision, so you're going to get my opinion. So let's start this off. In New York Post, Zohran Mamdani, yeah, we're all hearing this, aren't we? He's on a course to win New York City mayor's race, despite the majority of residents disagreeing with policies he supports. Isn't that how it works? Kind of happened that way with Biden, didn't it? So Zohran Mamdani could become mayor without a majority of support. And New York is that way. They're not a 50+1. They are just largest taker takes it. And that is thanks to Andrew Cuomo and Curtis. They're splitting the vote. So now you got the vote going 3 ways. I think Curtis should stay in it. The Republicans got to fight for it. I personally think Curtis is the right choice for New York, but from within New York, you're going to see what I saw when I was researching this. So Mamdani had a 15-point lead over the runner-up candidates, Cuomo, runner-up independent candidate, Cuomo, in the New Manhattan Institute survey. A wider margin than late-game recent polls, showing a narrowing gap between the hopefuls and the unusual three-way race. Now, this was October 28th that this article came out. One of the things that we're finding is that gap is widening. So I'm looking at their graph now. Zohran Mamdani has 43% as of this article on the 28th. Andrew Cuomo, 28. That's a big leap. Curtis Sliwa, 19. New York has not been listening for the past 3 to 4 decades about homeschooling your children. Let's just put it that way as we move along. The survey by the right-leaning think tank also, notice that, New York Post, the right-leaning think tank also found that Sliwa, the Republican nominee, if he were to drop out of the race, it would narrow considerably. Didn't say he'd come up to him, but it would narrow. Yeah. So against Cuomo, he holds a 44 to 40% edge. This is Mamdani, maintaining a small advantage, but leaving the former governor within striking distance. This was on the 28th. Against Sliwa, in contrast, Mamdani retains a 47 to 33% lead, reflecting both the city's partisan lean and Sliwa's where he comes from, right? His limited appeal, as they're calling it. I wouldn't say he's limited appeal, but polls are polls. And a lot of times polls can lie, polls can tell the truth, polls can be skewed, depends on who's feeding the information and who's massaging the poll, what data they want to show in their article, right? So this was on the 28th. I want to go into the later polls. And before we get into those, we all need to understand what democratic socialism is, or a view of what we're going to see, okay? From Grok, which is Elon Musk's AI, democratic socialist, operates within capitalist democracy, pushes public ownership and redistribution through elections. not revolution or dictatorship of the proletariat. There's a little bit of revolution going on in the street, but they tell them on high what to do, and then the minions go out and do what they got to do. So now from the American Heritage Dictionary, there's about 8 different simple, I'll give you several of them. So democratic socialists, the class of individual wage earners, you don't get it free, earners, who possessing neither capital nor production means, you don't own your own business, you don't own any money, capital, right? Must earn their living by selling their labor. Interesting. And these guys are voting for Mondami for free stuff. Okay. Number 2, the poorest class of working people. You see what's happening here. They're creating that class we talked about last week. They're breaking us up into classes, and then they're taking those classes and stacking them into a broader set of voters that will vote for them, and that will be their working class. Number 3, their propertyless class of ancient Rome, constituting the lowest class of citizens. What happened to Rome? It didn't survive. A social class comprising those who do manual labor or work for wages. That's not what this guy Mamdani is promising his people. They're going to get free stuff. So where's that going to come from, right? So Merriam-Webster's explanation, the proletariat refers to the social class of wage earners who do not own the means of production and must sell their labor to survive. Wow, what are these guys voting for? In Marxist theory, and we're hearing this all over the place about Marxism, in Marxist theory, they are seen as an exploited class under capitalism with the potential to unite and overthrow the capitalist system. I would say that virus is happening right now. We're not quite there yet, but you can see the undertones of it. But it's in Marxist theory. Wikipedia, this is from the left, right? The proletariat is the social class of wage earners, those members of the society whose possession of significant economic value is their labor power. These guys don't have the money. They got their labor, right? A member of such a class is a proletarian or proletaire. Marxist philosophy, here again, regards the proletariat under conditions of capitalism as an exploited class forced to accept meager wages in return for operating the means of production. Operating, not owning, which belong to the class of business owners. So these people are voting for somebody who, anybody who's paid attention knows that he's building this society. And these guys, I tell you, they're not seeing it. They're not seeing it. So let's get into the research that I did on Grok, and I will give you the QR code for where that Grok research is, because I'm sure some of you will have something to say about something else I said, and I'm basically bringing it right out of this study, and then it's actually a conglomeration of a bunch of studies and polls and things like that. So you got the source now, and you want to know anything, go for it. I was highly enlightened when I did this. So I basically said, summarize the most recent polls for the mayor of New York City. Please break them down by poll source. Now, this is one thing that with AI, you need to understand when you're searching for stuff. Depending on what you want to look for, if you don't tell it precisely what you want, you're going to get something that is the public opinion, because it's going to pull it from all news, it's going to pull it from all social media, and you're going to get that view. So when you tell it something, you need to tell it what you're looking for. So this one, I just wanted the polls. Just want to see what the polls say. So recent mayoral polls as of October 30, 2025. Candidates Zoran Mandami, Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa. So the Marxist poll, I didn't even know there was a Marxist poll. Now we know. Mamdani's at 48%, Cuomo's at 32%, Sliwa at 15%. Manhattan Institute, Mamdani's at 46%, 31% for Cuomo and 21% for Sliwa. Seeing a trend here? Quinnipiac, we've all heard of this one, 43% Mamdani, 33% Cuomo, 14% Sliwa. And Emerson College, PIX 11, The Hill, same thing. Mamdani, 43%, Cuomo, 28%, and Sliwa at 10%. So the notes that were put together, Mamdani leads in all recent polls. Cuomo's gaining ground after Adams dropped out. Earlier polls, the August Siena, Mamdani was at 42%, Cuomo 23%. Not really striking distance. It's actually beginning to show a widening lead. Averages from the trackers like Race to the White House align with the 45 to 48% for Mamdani. We're noticing that just in those four. He's sitting in the 40s, low 40s to upper 40s, depending. Marxist, well, I think that should pretty much tell you something based on our description. So the predictions, Zoran Mamdani. How about that? Really? Zoran Mamdani is the predicted? So basically what I asked the AI to do, as I said, and again, this takes you out of the norm, right? So I told it based on logic, math, and science, which candidate will be the next mayor of New York City and why. So this basically tells it to go into its basic programming and go searching. Don't go skimming, right? You're going to learn that you're going to get a lot better information from that. I actually learned that from Answers in Genesis on YouTube when they are talking about proving God's existence or proving dinosaurs existed, proving that man and dinosaurs could live together at any given time. So the prediction, based on logical aggregation of polls, probabilistic modeling of the prediction markets and statistical analysis of voter demographics and turnout, Mamdani, Democrat, well, he's actually a Democrat socialist, is the most likely winner of the November 4 election. New York mayoral election with an estimated 85 to 90% probability. There you have it, folks. That's why I gave you the definition in the beginning. We can all see it going this way. Andrew Cuomo has a 10 to 12% chance, and Curtis Sliwa has less than 5%. And no scientific model projects an upset without unprecedented polling errors. Well, we saw those four polls were pretty much aligned. So interesting times that we're living in right now. So demographic turnout. This is interesting. I think we all kind of have an idea where this is going, unless you don't normally watch me and you've stumbled upon this or somebody sent it to you. Demographic and turnout science, social science modeling. New York electorate is 68% Democratic, 10% Republican, 22% independent and other. Now you see why they tried Trump in New York. Mamdani dominates Dems with 85% plus support. And progressives, youth turnout is up 15% in early voting, per the Board of Elections data. It's not looking good, is it? Cuomo draws moderates, but splits anti-Mamdani vote with Sliwa. Now, if you remember Cuomo, there's a lot of people that have a really bad taste in their mouth from Cuomo, and it was mainly the last thing on his record before he was no longer governor was putting COVID infected patients in with your mom and dad and your grandma and grandpa in nursing homes. And Janice Dean even knows about that as well because she lost her parents to this exact scenario. So people really have a bad taste in their mouth for Cuomo right now. Not a good deal, right? So turnout projection expected 1.2 million voters, which is up 10% from 2021. There's a lot of people that are coming out for this. And I think it's across the spectrum as well. Early voting, they've got 370,000 plus as of October 30, which happens to be today. And it skews young, progressive, go figure, aligning with Marxist crosstabs. Mamdani plus 25 among 18 to 34s. So he's up with the young. The young are going for him because the young have been educated that the rich man has taken all the money, and the young have to go after the rich to get the money, and that way they can be free. They're not going to be free, as you saw with that description. Why not Cuomo or Sliwa? Cuomo gained post-Adams endorsement. His poll bump was about +5 to 7, but insufficient in a Democrat-heavy city. That's fairly understandable. Sliwa, he's at a static 15 to 21%. GOP turnout caps about 15 to 20% historically. There's no path to plurality. He's never going to get that 48, 49% where he can compete. We need more Republicans, but I don't think you're going to have many Republicans living in New York City when this is all over. One of the interesting things I tapped into, I asked it based on the same findings above and the conditions. What are the top 2 reasons supporters claim they're voting for Zohran Mamdani? And as if we didn't know, affordability and economic policies. Yep, supporters emphasized Mamdani's plans to address New York's cost of living crisis, including rent freezes. Now, if you own a property and you're going to be told you got to freeze your rent, but the cost of living goes up and electricity and everything else goes up, your costs go up. What do you think you're going to do with that property? Yeah, these people are nearsighted. They only see what's here in front of them, what they can reach, the licorice strip. Free and faster buses, right? Universal childcare. Oh, that's great. Everybody gets childcare. Do you want to be leaving your child in a universal childcare system? I don't think so. Affordable housing. Well, there you go. How do you make it affordable? City-run grocery stores. This is the biggie. I even saw a note today that the city-run grocery stores are expected to run without a profit. So they're going to give you the food at cost, theoretically. What happens when the cost goes up? How do you run those grocery stores? You see where we're running out of money here? Margaret Thatcher, the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. Yeah. So these are the grocery stores. And then, of course, where do you get the money? Tax the rich to fund the services. Get the man, right? These are seen as practical solutions for working class New Yorkers with 72% citywide support for free transit per the polls. That's reason 1. Reason 2, stance on Palestine and Israel. Yep. And his progressive values all wrapped up in one little nut. So many highlight his unapologetic calls to end U.S. support for Israel, seen as a bold stand on the most important issue amid Gaza tensions. This resonates with young, progressive, and pro-Palestine voters, the Jewish left, and immigrants, framing him as an authentic and anti-establishment guy. Yeah. So that's a little bit interesting. So I have to ask myself, isn't there a large percentage of Jewish folks in New York? How is it that these Jewish folks are allowing these numbers to be so high and not going to vote for Cuomo or Sliwa? Yeah, that's an interesting question, isn't it? We'll get to that. So these two themes dominate grassroots endorsements with affordability and appealing broadly to renters and middle class. For example, 78% Asian support, and foreign policy energizing youth immigrants. And that foreign policy would be against Israel. Now, none of these people that are voting for Zoran have any clue what's going on in Gaza, where Hamas is murdering their own people, the Palestinians, and breaking their legs with pipes. No clue. They have no clue. They don't want to hear about it. We just know that Israel bad. Well, Zechariah 12:3, go read it. Read the whole chapter 12 for context. And don't forget to dig in and read twice verse 9. So interesting times, right? So these are the top two reasons. We've already talked about the description. So here's an interesting little poll. We're hearing the rich say, you know what, this is going to suck. So we're leaving. We're going. We see the writing on the wall. We're gonna have an impact. Well, they will. I'm kind of wishy-washy on the results from Grok on this because I can't see more money coming back in after the money has left with Mamdani in the mayor's office. Maybe more of the people that are sucking off the system when it talks about inflows, but when it talks about outflows, it's the money that's leaving. It's not the people that are leaving because of free stuff, because New York's going to be giving it to them. So here's to give you just a little bit of a breakdown. So based on empirical data from tax studies, historical migration patterns, and recent statements from wealthy New Yorkers, for example, Bill Ackman, I'm going to screw this name up, John Katastamatis, and real estate developers warning of exodus to Florida, North Carolina, or the suburbs due to this proposed 2% millionaire taxes and rent freezes. Now, do you think it's going to be only 2%? Once government takes a piece, they want another piece. So Grok estimates about a 0.5% net outrate gain, leaving New York State, if Mamdani wins. So the interesting thing about this is New York State has a total population of about just under 20 million. 0.5%, showing a number leaving of about 100,000 people. That aggregates 1 to 2% of the 1 million high wealth households, top 5% per the census, that are leaving, but offset by the in-migration and low baseline mobility. I don't see the rich leaving and the rich coming back. So it's almost like it's looking at rear patterns, because we haven't seen this before. It's looking at patterns in the rear that talk about as people leave, people come in. I get that. I doubt the rich are coming, because the rich are already talking about canceling investments in New York City. Yeah. So New York State estimated number leaving 100,000 out of the state, right? And of that from New York City is about 80,000. New York City has about 80%. Okay. So New York City holds 80% of the wealth concentration. The top 1% earn 44% of the city income versus 30% statewide. 40% of households are greater than 100,000 that are in New York City, and they drive most of the tax sensitive moves. Chew on that for a little bit. Rich people moving out because they have the means to do it and they don't want more of their money taken from them. Yeah, that money's going with them. We have to remember that. New York, they're not going to be remembering it. They're not going to remember it until they find out that they're going to have to tax the rich 3% and 4% to make up for the people that are leaving because they're not getting enough people back. So yeah, the math and math and logic step by step. The population leaving, we just talked about that, 100,000, 80% leavers out of New York City, right? Not necessarily New York. Income distribution of leavers. This is what I thought it was interesting. Top 1%, 80,000 plus, or 800,000 plus dollars. About 25% of leavers, 25,000, are the most vocal tax sensitive. Bye-bye, right? They're going. Top 5%, 250,000 to 800,000, 35% of leavers. That's 35,000 people. Bye-bye. Middle upper class, 100,000 to 250,000, 40% of leavers. That's 40,000 people with a weighted average income of the leavers, everybody leaving, right? Those 100,000 people is about $368,000. That's per the IRS data on interstate movers, information that they've gotten from people that are moving out and all the other stuff. There's a lot to understand about that. You can promise the moon, but if you don't have any rocket fuel, you're going to be looking at the moon. You're not going to be going to the moon. You could try. I think Elon Musk would tell you, yeah, not going to happen, right? So here's some other interesting information. Estimates. There's a lot of people that have been saying they're going to cancel their big projects in New York City. That's going to have an effect because those big projects, once they pour money into the city, those big projects are going to be taxable and that money's going to be flowing out. So does that make any sense? I don't know. I just don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me. All right. So what else do we have here? Interesting information. I got to tell you. Demographics. Here was the biggie for me. We knew they're progressive. I mean, that's a given. These people are in, LGBTQ uniforms with everything hanging out and they're dancing and he's smiling because he's getting their vote. Right. So here's the demographics. Age, Mamdani support, 18 to 20 years old, 55 to 69%. There's a stark generational divide. 69% of under 50 back him. Older voters, 50 plus, lean towards Cuomo. They're seeing the writing on the wall. They're saying, you know what? I'm going to pick the best of the two evils. I only have two evils up there. And I don't want Mamdani, but Cuomo's not pulling enough. So Mamdani support, we move up in the age bracket, 30 to 44 age, it's 52%. 45 to 64 years old, 44%. And 65 plus, 31%. So even the 65 plus people are voted, is that the percentage is about the amount that Cuomo's getting in the total picture. So you can see the writing on the wall. Race, ethnicity, this was interesting. Black, 48%. Hispanic, 45%. That's a pretty big pull from Black and Hispanic. The Black have been utilized in a tennis match back and forth between the Democrats and the Republicans. And a lot of them are starting to open up saying, look, I got to get off this plantation. I got to start voting Republican so I can get a job. Asian, 48 to 50%. And that's a 40-point lead over Cuomo. It's just not looking good for Cuomo, is it? Gender, it's fairly equal. Men is 45%, women is 48%. Income and education. Here's where we go back to those numbers, right? The education is low mid income, less than 50,000. 50% plus is college educated, or college educated are 45%. So again, we go back to homeschooling, right? With that said, like I said, there's a lot to cover in this thing. I hit on the top points. My opinion is we're going to see Mamdani as the next mayor. The numbers are there. He's got them. And the bridge is just, it's too big for Cuomo to meet it. And Sliwa, even if everything poured into Sliwa's race, I don't think he even has a chance at it right now. It's not him. He knows the city better than anybody. And he's the right choice. But New York is different now. So I will let you guys go. We will do this next week and maybe cover some more information because this will be after November 4. Have a great week. Enjoy yourselves.